Okay, let's talk about homeschool geometry. And if you're watching this video, I assume you are a homeschooler, and that is fantastic. I have the greatest respect for homeschoolers and homeschooling. It's certainly not easy, but there's a huge amount of benefits to homeschooling. And what I want to be talking about in this particular video is what homeschool parents really want to know when they're considering or they're researching to homeschool a geometry course. So we're gonna get into this with these three questions, and let me show you those questions now. And the first is I'm going to go ahead and just define what is geometry at the high school level because that's what this video is directed towards. Because you're kind of studying geometry in your elementary and middle school years, but what we're talking about here is like a formal full 1 year geometry course typically taken at high school. So I'm going to get into some of the things you want to look at when you're considering various courses because not all geometry courses are going to be created equal. Now, the second thing that I'm going to be talking about is what grade should students take geometry. So this will give you a good sense of not only what grade, but what age you should have your child take this course. Of course, there's always exceptions to this rule, but we'll discuss that here in a second. And then the third thing is I'm going to talk about the most important factors for student success, not only in geometry, but in mathematics in general. But before we get going, let me go ahead and quickly introduce myself. My name is John. I'm the founder of TabletClass Math. I'm also a middle and high school math teacher. I've been teaching math for decades. And over those years, I've constructed complete comprehensive homeschool math courses to include pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2, and pre-calculus. So I focus on what I know, and that is middle and high school math. So if you are looking for a geometry curriculum or maybe another course for another child, I'm going to leave a link to my homeschool courses in the description of this video. You can check out my free previews. If you're new to my YouTube channel, by the way, I literally have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of math videos, not only in geometry, but things from calculus to basic math. So you can get a real good sense of my teaching style there. But anyways, you can check that out if you'd like to. But one of the things I want to stress is this, okay? This video is intended to give you information to empower you to select the right curriculum for your child. So whether it's my program or another program, what I'm going to be talking about here applies to any program. So let's get right to it and talk about what geometry is. Now, of course, everyone pretty much has a basic sense of geometry. And you're like, well, aren't you studying things like circles and triangles and angles and whatnot? And you would be pretty much correct. So this is included in a formal 1 year geometry course, how to work with these basic figures, basic concepts like what an angle is. But in geometry, you get much more detailed in these type of things. So some of the big things that you're going to be studying a lot about is one, something called a polygon. So a polygon is a kind of a closed-sided shape, and pretty much the main polygon figure they're going to be studying is something called a quadrilateral. Now, this is in no particular order, so you'll be studying things like a trapezoid, and not just what a trapezoid is, but a lot of the unique properties of trapezoids, parallelograms, squares, rectangle, rhombuses. I can go on and on and on. So this is a big chapter in high school level geometry. Another big chapter in high school level geometry is working with parallel lines. So if you have two lines that are parallel and you have another line that chops to those two or more parallel lines, you have all sorts of unique angles are created. And this is another big chapter in high school level geometry that students absolutely must know. Now, going back to circles, okay, there's a whole complete chapter on circles, and this is what you should have in any geometry course you're considering for your child. So all the angles that are constructed when you have lines going through those circles. Now, I'm just kind of giving you a quick overview about those things. You also study triangles very, very deeply in high school level geometry. Okay, a lot to know about triangles like angle bisectors, similar triangles, congruent triangles. That brings me to another major concept that you're going to be studying in high school level geometry. That's congruency and similarity. Now, if you don't know what this is, that's okay. I'm just giving you a little bit of an overview of what your child's going to be learning. and things that you should be looking for in a geometry course. Now, another thing that your child is going to be introduced to, hopefully, in whatever course they select, is basic right angle trigonometry. So things like dealing with sine, cosine, and tangent, generally speaking, are introduced in high school level geometry. Okay, so make sure whatever course you're considering that there is this kind of basic right angle trigonometry section in that course, because you want your child to be exposed to some basic trigonometry before they move up into a course like pre-calculus, where you're going to really be dealing with pretty heavy duty trigonometry. Now, I'm not covering every single thing. I'm just kind of covering some highlights here, or what's going to be in a geometry course. But I want to also talk about something that proves, and I hope I spelled that right. Uh, Now, there's this thing called proofs in geometry. Okay, and let me just go ahead and show you what this is. And this has to do with the idea of logic. Okay, and this is very, very important. Logic and deductive logic. So how do you prove something? Okay, so you'll make a statement, and then you have to support that with a reason. And in geometry, these reasons or supportive reasons are things that your child's going to learn, like postulates, theorems, definitions, properties, etc. There's tons and tons of theorems and postulates that your child is going to need to learn. Not You can't possibly learn this through like rote memorization. That's just too much. That's why your child wants to be taking very organized and excellent notes, not only in geometry but any math course, but it's even extra important in geometry because you got to reference all these postulates, theorems, etc. So when you're dealing with logic and deductive logic, that's this idea of proof. And not all geometry courses, high school level geometry courses, uh, uh, deal with proofs in this at the same level. Okay, so for example, a more rigorous geometry course would have a lot of proof problems. I'm going to suggest to you that at a minimum, make sure there are proofs in whatever geometry course that you're going to have your child do. Most students do not like this because it is difficult, but the more your child kind of learns how to work with these proofs, okay, or is challenged by them, it's going to improve their critical thinking. So this is really, really important. So in my geometry course, I do have several problems throughout the chapters that deal with proof. Okay, very, very important. Again, not every course is going to emphasize the idea of proofs. I'm going to strongly recommend that you do have your child exposed to a good amount of them, even though they may not like it because most of these problems are pretty difficult. But anyways, those are some of the things that you want to be looking at a high school level geometry course. Now, why is geometry so critical? Okay, at the high school level. Well, I'm going to talk about this here in a second in terms of when you should be taking this, but basically this course, high school level geometry, you're only going to really kind of see these concepts once in a full year course, because most of your other courses, like algebra, and then of course you have geometry, algebra 2, and pre-calculus, all of this is pretty much algebraic stuff. So really, well, there is some geometry related items in these courses. Your main geometry education, geometric education about all these various angles and parallel lines, perpendicular lines, circles, arcs, and stuff is going to come from this course. Okay, so whatever your child learns here, okay, is going to be called upon in these courses, but they're not going to really kind of teach this in there, if that makes some sort of sense. But let's go ahead and talk about um, what grade students should take geometry, and I want to emphasize another important point, well, why geometry is so important. So typically, and this is, of course, a general recommendation. There are always exceptions to the rule, but let's go ahead and break this up. Here's elementary school. Okay, so let's say we start middle school, sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade. And then at ninth grade, this is, of course, high school right here. So at the ninth grade level, for the most part, let me move this up here. Most students should be taking Algebra 1. Okay, and then at 10th grade, you want to do geometry. In 11th grade, you want to do Algebra 2. And then as a senior, you can end up doing pre-calculus or statistics. This is an excellent college prep track. Now, there are some questions out there. Should I do Algebra 1 and then Algebra 2 and then geometry? That is a very frequent question, and the answer to that question is no. Do not do that. Put geometry right here between Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. So that's going to bring most students taking geometry at the 10th grade level. Okay, so in terms of grades, you're talking about students 15, 16 years old right here. Okay, so that's where most students should take geometry. Now, if you have an accelerated child and you took Algebra 1 in the 8th grade right here, well, then you just kind of move everything back here. So that puts geometry in 9th grade, Algebra 2 at the 10th grade. You could do pre-calculus at the 11th grade, and then you could end up doing like calc, advanced placement, Calc AB as a senior, and of course, there are seniors out there that are taking calculus at in the 12th grade for college credit if they can pass the AP exam. So everything has got to be reverse engineered. So think about what your child's end goals are going to be. But if you're not quite sure whether they're going to be going to college, I would strongly just recommend keep it on this track here because this gives them the option to be flexible. Okay, this is an excellent college prep track right here to end up with pre-calculus as a senior. Will set them up for success for college, and that includes STEM-related degrees like engineering, science and whatnot, because you would just roll right in as a freshman in college to a calculus course. So don't feel like you have to try to take calculus at the 12th grade year. But anyways, again, all these courses are going to be interrelated in terms of when you want to take them and when you want your child to take them. But let's talk about another major reason why you want to take geometry after Algebra 1, not Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 and then geometry. So right here, the ninth and 10th grade, okay, a student, if they successfully completed these courses, they will have taken Algebra 1 and Geometry. Now, what happens in the 11th grade if a student wants to go to college? Well, you're going to be taking college entrance exams, things like the SAT and ACT. All of these tests are becoming somewhat more optional right now. There's still a ton of students that take these tests, and you're going to want to have your child be prepared to take these tests in the 11th grade, starting in the 11th grade. And the SAT and ACT, it's not quite 50-50. It's more like maybe 60-40 split. It's a little bit tilted more towards the algebra side, but you're basically looking at Algebra 1 and geometry. Okay, so in other words, whether half that test or 40% of that test, you're going to be a lot of geometry on the SAT and the ACT. Okay, and obviously a little bit more of the algebra. So you don't want to be taking geometry. You don't want your child to be taking and learning geometry, in the year they're going to be taking the SAT, because they're not going to be um, they will not have completed their geometry education. So when they go to take the SAT during the school year or the ACT, there's still things that they still have to learn in geometry that they'll need for the SAT and ACT. So you want to get this done before they actually start taking this test. Okay, so there's other reasons to put geometry before algebra 2. Just uh, kind of trust when I say that this is the best track. Now, there's always exceptions to this, but when it comes down to, for most students, what grade should your students take geometry? It should be in that second year of high school, the 10th grade. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about what is the most important factors for student success in mathematics and in geometry. Well, the most important factor always in any subject or any course is the teacher. Okay, you want your child to have an excellent teacher. Okay, again, when you're looking at programs, course curriculum, the reason why you just don't buy your child a geometry textbook and say, here, read this textbook and learn, is because A textbook is this reference material. Okay, yes, it has the concepts and whatnot, but it's not enough. A teacher is the person, okay, the professional that it basically translates this material, and through experience, the teacher is going to know how to basically emphasize. You need to know this. It's more important that you know these things versus these things. The textbooks doesn't do the text A textbook will not give you that information. This comes from experience. So you're going to want an experienced math teacher, okay? And a high school level math teacher for most in most school districts in most states has to, well, for the most part, has a degree in math. Okay, so we're talking about a highly qualified teacher. So you want to take a look at someone's qualification. Not only, like for myself, I have a degree in mathematics, I also have a master's of science and educational technology, but that's not what makes me a good teacher. Okay, that's part of what makes me a good teacher, but what makes me a good teacher is experience. Okay, actually teaching for several years, you get better at it, and you really understand all the little things that a textbook can't bring out, like the common mistakes students make, emphasizing things that are more important for your child to be learning at this level of their education versus others. So you're going to want an experienced, highly qualified math teacher. This is going to make all the difference. So when you're evaluating a program, you have to ask yourself, who is the teacher? Okay, you might see information. There's a course. They're like, oh, this course teaches this and this and this and this. Well, that's fine. That's just basically like what's in a textbook. Who is the teacher? Okay, you want to really get a good sense of that. Now, along with that, the second thing I want to stress to you is the quality of instruction. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you can have a great teacher, but how long, for example, are the lesson videos? Okay. I'm talking about video based programs. So, how long are the lessons? Are they 3 to 5 minutes? Well, that's not going to be really adequate. You're going to want to find instruction that's very comprehensive. Think about like a regular school, let's say at a top private school or public school. Generally speaking, most students are going to get 1 hour with that teacher every day. Of that hour, maybe 30 minutes is going to be direct and high quality instruction. So, a 3 to 5 minute video, is not the same thing as 30 minutes of direct instruction. And then the other 30 minutes here in class is typically going to be like guided practice, the teacher going over a lot of prompts. So you're going to want to find a very robust video-based program. And you should be using a video-based program these days. Of course, you need good, material, workbooks, and things like that. That's all important, but that's secondary to a teacher that has kind of an engaging personality. That's someone that your child likes and understands, and that can deliver comprehensive video lessons. Okay, so you're going to have to check whatever program that you're evaluating that has. Of course, all these things I'm talking about, I feel like I do very well. That's why my courses take several years to build. But let's talk about this last thing, and that is practice. Okay, so practice problems. Now, you can have a great lesson, but if the course that your child's going to be taking only has, say, 2 to 4 example practice problems to kind of follow, like video problems showing you how to do, okay, you could do this problem, you could do that problem. And these are videos that explain that type of problem. But now, what happens when your child's doing 20 problems and all these various problems down here aren't covered in the lesson or some of the examples that are given? That's a pretty typical complaint for a lot of students, and understandably so. You're like, hey, I'm doing problems here that weren't covered in the lesson or in the examples practice problems. So you're going to want a course that covers a lot of practice problems. In my course, in my all my courses, every single problem I have a video solution for. I literally explain every single problem, and that's really how your child's going to get a thorough understanding and comprehension of the material. So you're going to want to find robust instruction from a great teacher. Okay, these are things that are going to make a huge difference in terms of your child's success. Right now, there are few students out there that could take a textbook and read it and kind of teach themselves, but your child doesn't really know what they don't know. Okay, they're just kind of going by this material, and sometimes they can underestimate how well they're doing just because they're like, oh, I like this material, I'm doing good on the test. If it's not rigorous enough, that could lead to issues, especially when they go into like college courses, and then they may find themselves unprepared. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video. Again, high school level geometry is a critical course. I highly recommend taking this again in the 10th grade. And this right here is the pretty much the sequence of courses that you should follow. Again, there's always exceptions to that, but again, it would start off with pre-algebra, algebra 1, first year high school, and then geometry, and then algebra 2, and then pre-calculus or statistics. I would lean towards pre-calculus. But anyways, if you're interested in my other topics here, on my YouTube channel, I've done videos already on pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry. I'm going to do algebra 2 and pre-calculus videos to give a guidance so you, the parent, can be informed, okay? So you can actually, get the best curriculum for your child. There's one other thing I want to mention before we go, and that is this, okay? Whatever you do, try before you buy, okay? You just don't want to purchase something on blind faith, especially not by some recommendation from a friend saying, oh, look, this worked great for my child. You need to try it. And what I mean by that is you don't have to have a full, in my opinion, like a full trial, complete full trial, but make sure you've looked at enough of samples. There should be enough there on the product's website, the course's website, for you to get a sense of the instruction. And then you take a look at it, see if you like it, have your child, take a look at it. Really do a lot of thorough, research before you commit, not to just only buy something, okay, because you're going to purchase a product, but really it's the time and the commitment you are making during that academic school year. Because the worst thing that don't want to be dealing with is changing curriculums mid-year if it's not, if that curriculum program is not working out. That does happen, and you can successfully switch from one curriculum to another, but it's something you want to avoid. That's why you want to do all your research up front, try a program and be armed with this information that I'm giving you so you can evaluate and make a good choice before school starts. Okay, so hopefully this little video helped you out, and if that is the case, please consider smashing that like button and maybe subscribing to my channel. Again, my passion is to teach middle and high school mathematics. I've been on YouTube for 10 plus years. I'm on YouTube literally every week. So I just teach, teach, teach. That's what I know. That's what I like. That's what I love. So hopefully you'll check out my homeschool math courses, evaluate those. And by the way, if you have any specific questions, please use our contact form on our website and we'll get back to you and help you out the best we can. All right. With that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your homeschool adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.